Welcome back to another NCut movie review. Today we have Iron Claw, a movie that is an emotional rollercoaster about family and the pressure of winning at all cost. Does it deserve to be the best sports drama of the year? Stick around and find out. Roll the intro.
This film was a biopic about the WWE Wrestling Hall of Fame family, the Von Erichs, and about the trials and tribulations, the tragedy and the ecstasy of their life around the mid-80s and the 90s, and their rise as a small Texas family to NWA World Heavyweight Champions and also becoming a staple in WWE and wrestling history. Zac Efron is the main character in this film. He plays Kevin Von Erich, but the three other brothers that he has on screen in this film share the screen sort of equally. He is the main character and the whole film sort of seen through his eyes, but you also see it through the eyes of his brothers Kerry and David, who are the other main wrestlers in the Von Erich family, and also through the father's eyes, Fritz Von Eric, who is a hard ass in this film and essentially drives the whole premise of the family trying to rise up and become a great wrestling name, which they did in the end. Zac Efron's transformation in this film was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, aside from the fact that he looks like He-Man from most of the movie, you can almost not recognize his face in this. I mean, I know we've seen different things about how he had an accident and this and that, but his transformation with how much muscle he put on in this movie was simply unbelievable. And it's good to see that he went all in on this role, not just in the physical form, but also in the emotional form in the way that he acted. I think this is a coming-of-age film for Zac Efron that he's done, but the way he acted in this, it should get talks how well he did in a drama film. I mean, we know what he's done. He's always been sort of the good-looking guy in different movies, in the comedy and buddy movies, but this film is a really coming-of-age film for Zac Efron.
Now, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I grew up on wrestling. Every week I used to watch it, and I thought that this film had very high expectations to even reach the past films that have been dramatized by wrestling as well, such as Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler, one of the most dramatic films probably possible in terms of wrestling, and the saddest as well. This almost kind of topped it. I have to say, this film kind of brought a different aspect of wrestling from a family's perspective, and especially one that has so much history and is also a Hall of Fame family. So much tragedy goes through their family, and so much so that they think that there is a curse put upon this family. The Von Erich curse. It's well known. It's very famous. And I think that because of this, it kind of gets into the characters' heads, and it gets into these heads that we can't have a family because the curse will be pushed on through our name, through our bloodline, and basically destroys them from the inside out. And it's all pushed, as Geordie was saying, by the father.
Holt McCallany, who plays Fritz Von Erich, does a really good job of setting up the dynamic of sibling rivalry between the brothers. There is a scene in this movie where he literally is at a dinner table and ranks his sons 1 through 5 and also says, hey, these standings aren't solidified. You can change the standings depending on what sort of achievements you have. Either in one of them is a discus Olympian or is going to be a discus Olympian. One of them, who's Kevin Von Erich, who is Zac Efron, is the best wrestler in the family. David Von Erich, who hasn't quite come into his own as the wrestler yet, but becomes arguably the best and most talented wrestler. And that scene there perfectly sets up a recurring theme of the movie, which is the father, Fritz Von Erich, essentially pitting the brothers against one another to achieve his goal vicariously through them, because he never became the NWA Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, and that's pretty much what he wants for his sons, even though in a scene he literally says to Kerry, his middle son, I never wanted you to be a wrestler, but if you want to be a wrestler, I would love you to have you on the team, which is a direct lie, and sort of goes into further the character that Fritz Von Erich is, which is probably a bit of a narcissist in the fact that he puts all this pressure on his sons and never sees the fault in himself of what the pressure on his sons has actually done. Now, I will say on a side note that Kevin Von Erich did come out and say that the interpretation of his father in this movie was probably wrong and he wasn't as hard as the film made him out to be, but you understand why they did it for dramatic reasons. And he also said that he essentially loved his father and that he would never have done anything, and that he would never have, gotten angry at his father or had a fight with his father when they were younger, and that his father was a great man and that all the brothers really loved him.
I was stone cold stunned and shocked.
Yeah. There was a scene where I believe it was a verse, 3:16, where Jesus said to the disciples, make sure you suplex City that man over the rope.
He actually said, can I get a hell yeah?
Brown bear, what? Black bear,
what?
Another few things that the film tackles subtly, which was kind of surprising but good to see, is mental health and the issues that people can go through silently and while putting on a brave face. Another point is Kerry's addiction to painkillers and also steroids and sort of the repercussions that come from that. I mean, there's a specific scene where you clearly see him having roid rage and he has no idea that he's sort of flipping out. And I feel like that would have been a very common theme and a very common problem that a lot of wrestlers past and present, go through, especially the addiction to pain medication. I mean, some of the acts that these guys do and you see them do in this movie, but also in real life, you can understand why they're using the pain meds. I mean, they're bloody putting their bodies on the line and breaking bones and shattering everything that they've got in their fucking brains. Possibly CTE, which led to the mental health problems that was a reoccurring problem throughout this family, except for Kevin. He's the only one who sort of was able to deal with his demons and deal with his problems.
And that probably attributes to wife in the film, Pam, who is there for him through every endeavor that he goes through when he's at his lowest and also through the highest of highs. She's there for him no matter what. And her introduction to this film also sets her up to be that rock that he needed, and probably the reason why he made it through so far as he did. I've also heard and seen a lot of reviews about Zac Efron's Oscar nomination for this film. And is it deserving enough? In my opinion, I think it's deserving for him to get a nomination at least. Probably not the Oscar, because there is so many probably better films are going to come out throughout the year that will be biopics or that will be even more dramatized than what he's produced on screen. But thank God he's finally starting to utilize his talent. Instead of being this funny comedian on screen, he's now starting to become a dramatic actor, just like his Ted Bundy roles, and he's starting to sort of inhabit his full potential.
Coming into this film, Josh and I didn't even know anything about the Von Eric family. I think we'd never even heard of them, even though Josh himself is a wrestling fan. It's a bit before our time. We were drawn into the film because Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White were in it. I mean, one of those guys is the hottest actor in the world right now, and the other one is a childhood actor who's been around forever.
And looks exactly like you, by the way.
Yeah, it does look exactly like... Is my twin.
Literally.
He's literally my twin. And we were completely surprised by the fact that this movie was so deep and had so many different layers, like onions.
That Shrek couldn't even bite through. It's that fucking deep.
And it was just a scintillating emotional roller coaster. When we left and Maura Tierney, who plays Doris Von Eric, who is the mother of the Von Eric boys, very poignant scenes where a tragedy had just occurred, and you could see the grief literally building on her face from scene to scene when, as the mother of the family, she's trying to deal with these recurring grievances that the family keeps going through from the curse. And you can actually see just the grief build on her face, on her personality, on her whole aura as a person. And that is a great testament to her acting ability, and also the writing in this film and the way it was able to set up these tragedies and make it feel fluid, even though they really did happen in real life.
I know Jordy and I have talked about this film so highly at the moment, but there is a couple of things that we have to address that just didn't work, and it was the impersonator of Ric Flair. I mean, obviously you can't get the real Ric Flair in there because the guy's like almost 90 years old, but this guy didn't really do a good job at shooting the promotion. He did a better job in the locker room scene where it was kind of more fluid and realistic to be Ric Flair in those scenarios, but him on screen trying to hit this promo just didn't feel the same, because Ric Flair himself went off top and didn't even write anything ever. And he was, I mean, it might have been drunk half the time, but he didn't write anything ever and just jumped right into the promo, which I think gave it the flair that Rick is known for.
Pun intended.
Big intended. And this is why the difference of the dichotomy between him and the real guy just didn't work. Like, it just needs to be better than that.
I think that speaks to the brilliance of not just Ric Flair himself, but so many wrestlers that we've seen come through the ranks because of the personality that they are able to create. I mean, it's essentially a lightning in the bottle thing with these guys. The way they're able to work the crowd, work their personalities into these promos. Like Josh said, Ric Flair does it off the top of his head. That's unbelievable when you look back at the work that he was able to do and the amazing promos that he was able to create just off the top of his head because of the confidence that he has in himself. We can understand why the actor wasn't able to get that flair that Ric Flair has. That just speaks to Ric Flair himself and also all these other wrestlers who just are incredible personalities. I mean, look at The Rock. There's no one that could create The Rock's aura on screen like he did when he was back in his heyday and prime day. Same with Stone Cold Steve Austin, same with Brock Lesnar.
Just to wrap up this review, I'm going to give this film around about 90%. This was one of the best biographic dramas I've seen on screen. Just the whole cast really did a good job of presenting the Von Erichs for who they truly were. And I'm a massive wrestling fan, as I said at the start, and I like the fact that it shows you for wrestling for what it really is. People getting hooked on these painkillers and people really going through these traumatic injuries and just pushing through just so they can get to the big leagues and finally get their break and then take a long deserved rest that they need. But it kind of never ever happens, which I that's the part of the film that I enjoyed, was the realism towards wrestling.
My rating for this film would be around about a 90%. I absolutely loved this movie. It was such a deep, impactful movie emotionally for you. It's a wild ride that you go through. If you don't know anything about the Von Erichs, good. Go and watch this movie because it will take you on a crazy ride, an unexpected journey of emotion. Shout out to Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White for how good their acting was, for their body transformations. They looked incredible. Zac Efron should be taken seriously now for his dramatic acting and ability, because I thought it was incredible the way that he was able to draw emotion from himself in so many poignant scenes where you just don't see that usually from Zac Efron, and I think this is a real big moment for him to sort of launch himself into being a dramatic actor. I would recommend this film to anybody to go and see it. I want to go see it again. That's how much I loved it. So everybody should go see it.
Whatever Zac Efron's on, give it to me right now. I want it immediately.
I need that Hollywood pill.
Right, whatever sup they have, give it into me now. Anyway, guys, it's been another NCut movie review. Don't forget to drop the like, the sub.
Do you think Zac Efron should be in Oscar nomination talks, or at least any sort of award talks for a dramatic actor or a lead actor for his role in this movie? Because we think he does, and we think that he should definitely be spoken about going into the future for how good his acting was in this role.
Anyway, guys, once again, don't forget to drop the like, the sub, share it if you enjoyed this. Peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut.